Good evening from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, and welcome to the webcast of the SAOCOM 1A mission out of our West Coast launch site at Space Launch Complex 4E, located at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. My name is Tom Perdario, and I'm a firmware engineer here at SpaceX, and I'll be your host for this evening. Tonight, we'll be placing the SAOCOM 1A Earth observation satellite into a low Earth orbit for Argentina's Civilian Space Agency, or CONAI. Tonight's launch is scheduled for 7:21 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. That's 0221 hours Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC. SAOCOM 1A will mark SpaceX's 17th launch of 2018. This evening's launch is also an especially exciting one for SpaceX because it's the first land landing back at our Vandenberg launch site. Tonight, following second stage separation, that first stage will return back to the west coast of California and attempt to land on our brand new Vandenberg landing zone called LZ4, which we'll talk about more later in this webcast. As I mentioned before, this Falcon 9 first stage will be attempting the first ever land landing back at Vandenberg Air Force Base. In order to accomplish this, the first stage executes a series of 3 engine burns: boost back, re-entry, and landing. This animation will give you a better idea of exactly what that first stage is going to do. So right now you can see the first stage ascending into the atmosphere, carrying the second stage. At about 2.5 minutes into flight, that second stage pops off, and the first stage executes a boost back burn to come back towards the pad. It then executes an entry burn to slow itself down, and then finally, in conjunction with opening its landing legs, it comes down for a landing burn right over the pad. Land landings have a number of advantages over water landings. First, they're not subject to ocean storms that might affect the drone ship. And secondly, landing on land significantly streamlines our post-launch processing of the recovered first stage. With land landings, we're able to refurbish the boosters right here at our facilities in Vandenberg rather than waiting for the drone ship to return all the way back to port. These types of efforts support our future goal of a 24-hour turnaround from landing to reflight. The ability to land rockets back on land at Vandenberg has been made possible through our recent Block 5 upgrades, including increasing the rocket's power so the vehicle is able to propel itself all the way back to land after accomplishing its primary mission. If successful today, this will be the first land landing of a Block 5 vehicle. To enable land landings, we also had to create a new landing zone, LZ4. You can see in these shots exactly how close to the launch site that landing zone 4 pad is. Work began on LZ4 back in 2016 and took about a year to complete. The site actually has an interesting history. Space Launch Complex 4, or SLC 4 for short, which is the entire thing you can see on your screen right here, was originally 2 separate launch pads, SLC 4 East and SLC 4 West. That first flew the Titan rocket family before being taken over by SpaceX. SpaceX refurbished SLC 4 East for the first Vandenberg Falcon 9 launch back in September of 2013, which is actually the first SpaceX flight that I saw as an employee. The other pad, SLC 4 West, has now been reconstructed as LZ4 to receive the rockets that launch literally right next door. Of course, both launch and landing pads are both clear of all personnel in the hours leading up to the launch. Now, it's important to note that regardless of how many successes we have, landing a first stage, much like launching the rocket itself, is always a very challenging task. Furthermore, because this is the first time we're landing the rocket back on land at Vandenberg, right next to the launch pad, this is an especially tricky one. Our most important objective tonight is to deliver the satellite SAOCOM 1A to orbit, but landing a first stage would be a significant achievement as well. Is still giving us the okay for launch. The weather continues to look beautiful. In fact, most of the SpaceX team is either outside of our headquarters or at Vandenberg itself to watch this beautiful launch tonight. As a reminder, if anyone calls for hold in the countdown net, we will have a backup launch opportunity on Thursday at the same time. Like I was saying, we are monitoring no problems with upper level winds or ground level winds, and there is not a cloud in sight. So with just about 5 minutes until launch, or excuse me, with just about 3.5 minutes until launch, let's listen into the countdown nets as we approach T-0.
Falcon 9's in startup.
Falcon 9 SAOCOM, go for launch and landing.
15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff. Just cleared the tower.
Take a 60 gun range.
Stage 1 props nominal. Power and telemetry nominal.
All planetary stations are receiving.
You're looking at the Falcon 9 rocket as it ascends through the atmosphere, carrying the SAOCOM 1A satellite to low Earth orbit.
Vehicle supersonic.
Right now, the vehicle is passing through max Q, which is the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure on the airframe. The vehicle actually throttles itself down for this portion of the flight in order to reduce structural stresses.
Altitude 30 kilometers.
For those of you just joining us, we did have a successful liftoff from the pad at Vandenberg Air Force Base at 7:21 p.m., just as expected. Coming up at T plus 2 minutes and 19 seconds, we're going to have a series of 5 events happening all very, very quickly together. That's going to be main engine cutoff, stage separation, second engine start, boost back burn start, and fairing deploy. It's going to happen really fast, so let's watch the views we have on your screen.
100.
Coming up in about 10 seconds.
Nico.
And there you have it. We had a successful main engine cutoff and then a good stage separation of that first stage. You can see the second stage Merlin vacuum engine lighting up right now, heating up and preparing to boost that payload the rest of the way and towards its intended orbit.
Stage 1 boost back is started.
Should see that fairing deploy on the right-hand side of your screen right now. And there it is. Good fairing deploy.
Fairing separation confirmed.
So right now, what you can see is 2 separate views. On the left-hand side of your screen, you can see the that's a view from the top of the first stage of the Falcon 9, currently executing a boost back burn. This is a shot from the ground as we can see it here in California. And on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the bottom of the second stage as its Merlin vacuum engine continues to push that SAOCOM 1A satellite into low Earth orbit.
Stage 1 boost back is shut down.
That second stage will continue burning its Merlin 1 vacuum engine all the way until 10 minutes into flight.
Ascent trajectory nominal.
What you're seeing on the left-hand side of your screen is a beautiful shot from the ground in California of the exhaust gases of that first stage. Viewers in California may be able to see this from outside. You can see the grid fins on the side of the rocket have extended. Those puffs of gas coming from the rocket that you can see from the ground are the reaction control system on that first stage as it maintains its attitude coming back down towards the pad. The boost back burn is now complete from that first stage. The next thing coming up at 5 minutes and 56 seconds will be the start of the entry burn. This entry burn happens just as the first stage hits the thicker regions of the atmosphere, so it can slow itself down and avoid damage to those 9 Merlin engines, which are entering first into the atmosphere. You can see periodic bursts from those cold gas thrusters on the side of the first stage. So for those of you just joining us, we are currently following the first stage as it heads back towards the LZ-4 at Vandenberg Air Force Base on the left-hand side of your screen, and on the right is the second stage of the rocket as it continues to ascend towards low Earth orbit. There it is. That's the start of the entry burn of that Falcon 9 first stage. This burn is only about 30 seconds. Right now, that first stage is mostly empty of fuel, so it's actually pretty light. Doesn't need that much force to slow it down.
Stage 1, entry burn, shutdown.
And that looks like the shutdown of the entry burn. You're getting views both from the top of the Falcon 9 first stage as it comes down through the air, and also from the ground, visible from California. See much more of the first stage until it lights up its engines for the final landing burn. That's going to happen at T plus 7 minutes and 14 seconds. So coming up almost in about 5 seconds now. There it is. That's the start of the landing burn.
Stage 1 landing burn has started.
That Falcon 9 first stage should be approaching the ground just about in 5 seconds here. Let's watch as it attempts to land.
Stage 1 landing legs at the point. Vandenberg, LZ-4, the Falcon is landed.
And it appears that the Falcon 9 first stage has just stuck the landing at LZ-4 at Vandenberg Air Force Base. This is great news for everyone here at SpaceX. Reminder that this is the first time we've ever landed a rocket first stage back at Vandenberg Air Force Base. Great news for everyone here. We're all extremely excited. Like I said, most of our team. Second stage engine cutoff coming up in 10 seconds. And there it is. You can see that that second stage engine has shut down. We're now waiting confirmation that the stage is in a good orbit, exactly where we intend it to be.
Good.
And we have confirmation of a good orbit. This is great news. That means that there's only one more thing we have to do in order to get the SAOCOM 1A satellite to its destination in orbit, and that is payload deployment. Stand by for satellite separation in about 10 seconds. And there it is. You can see on your screen
Separation confirmed.
the SAOCOM 1A satellite gently gliding away from the top of the Falcon 9 second stage. This is fantastic news. This means that the SAOCOM 1A satellite has been put into its correct orbit, and the mission of the Falcon 9 is complete. So with that, we are going to be bringing the webcast to a close. Just a reminder, this was the fastest turnaround time for a West Coast relaunch, just about 2 months from landing to relaunch. To summarize what happened here today, we did have a good launch at 7:21 p.m. from the pad at Vandenberg Air Force Base. We then had a good ascent, and the first stage returned all the way back to LZ4 for a beautiful shot. As you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, that Falcon 9 just completed the first ever land landing on the West Coast for SpaceX. After that, we had a good boost.